Welcome to this update video on my co-op round-based zombie shooter that I'm making in Unity. What have I done since last time? Let's get into it.
Okay, let's go.
I did a big refactor of the back end to bring it more in line with the latest version of the boss room sample game, and some other boring stuff like making sure the game doesn't crash when a player disconnects. There isn't anything visually interesting to show for any of that, so I made this instead.
Hey, don't you ever besmirch Billy.
I can't stop.
Next, I added a nice blur effect when you open the pause menu. I'm using Unity's new UI solution, UI Toolkit, to make the menus in the HUD. If you don't know what UI Toolkit is, it's basically a toolkit for UI. It's similar to web technologies that I use in my 9 to 5 as a software developer, or software engineer if I'm feeling fancy.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
So I'm already familiar with a bunch of things, like instead of CSS we have USS, instead of HTML we have UXML. Unfortunately, UI Toolkit doesn't actually allow you to blur the elements like you can in CSS, at least not yet, so instead I used a custom pass to do the blur, and that worked fine. Now when you pause the game, it doesn't actually pause, so the zombies will still chase you even when you're in the menu. So yeah, keep your guard up for now, I guess. Never turn your back on a bean.
Sin City was a maybe.
And speaking of beans, I got a few comments in the last video saying that they look out of place, and that they should be replaced with actual zombies. It is a zombie game after all. Well, I'm proud to announce that I gave them new hats.
You can't keep getting away with it!
Okay, I just want to make it clear, I will be adding proper zombie models, and I actually have a model, but I'm just not ready to add it to the game yet. But rest assured, you won't just be shooting green beans in the actual game. Although maybe I could have an Easter egg where all the zombies turn back into beans for one round or something. That's not a bad idea.
Write that down!
In total, I added 3 new helmets for the zombies. The Pickelhaube with a cover, the Stahlhelm, and the Stahlhelm with a camo pattern. Then I added a simple weighted randomization system to make the standard Stahlhelm the most common helmet, as well as adding an option for no helmet. Moving on. I played the game on a laptop, and it ran about as well as a dead cat, so I knew I really had to add some graphic settings. To do this, I re-implemented the scriptable object-based settings system I had created in the original version of the project and cleaned it up a bit. Then I added a graphics tab in the settings menu, and the ability to select a graphics preset. The thing that's really killing my frames is tessellation though. Tessellation is that thing that adds extra geometry to stuff to make it look all nice and detailed. This is what I'm using for the terrain, but it can be pretty rough for performance. Now when you select low settings, it disables the terrain tessellation. To do that, I had to get all the active terrains in the scene and swap their material out for an identical one without tessellation. And now for the meat and tatties of the video.
Potatoes!
The interesting stuff. But before that, like, subscribe and hit the bell.
I'm not suggesting anymore.
Just do it!
The next thing I added was camera sway and recoil. I opened my trusty FPS animation test project and got to work. For both of these, I used the Cinemachine package that comes with Unity. I was already using it for the first person camera, and because Cinemachine is awesome, it was easy for me to add a custom noise extension for the camera sway. So now when you move, the camera isn't so static. To add camera shake for the recoil, all I had to do was generate an impulse after each shot with a custom noise profile, and it ended up looking pretty good. I looked at Modern Warfare 2019 and the new one that just came out for reference. For the actual weapon recoil itself, I looked at how it's done in other games. I considered Counter-Strike, which happens to be my favourite game of all time, and thought about adding skill-based spray patterns. In the end I went with a more casual approach because I was spending too long trying to think of a good way to define learnable spray patterns for all the weapons. I took a step back and realised 1. COD Zombies isn't fun because you have to master recoil patterns to outclass your opponents. It's fun because you're surviving against an endless torrent of zombies with your mates and completing Easter eggs and stuff. The game needs to be fun over everything else. 2. The game is set in World War I, so how many fully automatic weapons am I actually going to have?
And now for something completely different.
The next big thing I did was expand the map past the starting area. Now the trench carries on towards this ruined church, and before anyone says anything, yes, it's placeholder art. I'm just prototyping the level design, also known as grey boxing. Why is it called grey boxing? Because they're boxes, and they're grey. I wanted to spice things up a little bit, so I added some verticality to the map. You can take a right here and go into what's left of the church, or you can take a left and go underneath through this tunnel and back up the other side. Up here is where you'd progress to the next section by spending more points to clear this barrier. I think it'll make for a good early game camping spot, and you can always jump off if things start to get too hot. To get to the church, you need to spend points to open doors and clear barriers. In order to do that, you need a way to earn points. So that's what I did next. Now when you damage zombies, you'll see these numbers popping out and your points will go up. It's pretty satisfying. Because I added penetration, you can damage multiple zombies at the same time, and if you pair that with a fully automatic weapon, you can get lots of points all popping off at once. To make it less distracting, I batch the points together so it isn't spamming a million plus 10s all over the place. Lastly, you get extra points for killing zombies with headshots, so aim wisely and hit your shots. Now that I'd implemented points, I could finally add the ability to remove barriers and open up the map. When you're close to a barrier, it'll show this interaction prompt when you look at it. If you have enough points, you can spend them and it will remove all the debris with some nice effects. I also made the interaction system in a separate component from the barrier so that I can reuse it for any other interaction in the future, like purchasing perks, upgrading weapons, or anything else. The last big thing I added was a dev console. I found this dev console for Unity on GitHub that did pretty much everything I needed it to do, and it was inspired by the Source Engine's console, which is also what I had in mind for my own game. I forked it, edited the look of it, removed some commands I didn't need, and then added the first command, no clip. Now that I've got this dev console up and running, it'll help me develop and debug the game, and it'll be useful for players too, so it's a win-win. Well, that's all I've got for this video. If you liked it, leave a like, subscribe, comment, all of that stuff. And let me know what else you want to see in the game. Until next time, goodbye.